AAA Live! AAA Live! AAA Live!
Ang palatuntunang maghahatid sa inyo ng kaalaman sa edukasyon upang magbigay liwanag at gabay sa ating mga mag-aaral at magulang.
Where your academic goals will be advanced and achieved. AAA Live!
Lilinang ng inyong talento at huhubog ng inyong husay upang magtagumpay sa karerang tatahakin.
AAA Live!
At ngayon, narito ang guro ng bayan, Attorney AMIHAN April ALCAZAR.
Good evening to our audience and televiewers here in the Philippines and abroad. So, welcome to AAA Live, where your academic goals are achieved and advanced. So, this is Attorney AMIHAN April ALCAZAR, and our show AAA Live is airing every Wednesdays, 7 to 8 in the evening here at Katipunan channel. So you can like, follow, and subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube channels here at Katipunan channel. So for this episode, we will be discussing the fields of sciences and technology with our guest. So during the first segment, we are very lucky because I am currently now in the United States of America and have the opportunity to interview my colleagues from the academic community here in the United States. So our first guest is going to be an expert in the field of biological sciences. So that will be the science segment of our episode for today. And he will be discussing about biological sciences. So to our students, parents, stakeholders, and members of the academic community, so please stand by for this very interesting discussion about this field of study of biological sciences. So our guest, Dr. Donald Shaw, is an assistant professor of biological sciences at the University of Tennessee, Martin, Tennessee, United States of America. So let us all welcome our guest, Dr. Donald Shaw. Can you please give us some greetings to our audience, please?
Oh, hi, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Miller Akas, for inviting me for this particular interview. And I'll be here waiting to answer your questions if you have any, but also I think during this interview process, allow audience to know what a biologist, usually what are they doing and how and why they become so interested in this particular field, biological sciences.
Yes. So as I previously explained to you when I gave you the invitation, so we really would like to give some insights to our audience so that their future academic goals or even their current academic goals can be advanced and achieved by viewing our interview. So maybe we can really begin, Dr. Shaw, from the very beginning as to when and how did you develop your interest in the field of science and specifically in biology?
Okay, yeah. When I was growing up, I was born and raised in Taiwan. In high
very
school.
far away from Philippines.
Yeah, it's actually one of the neighboring country of Philippines. And I was there. That's where I grew up until age of 26.
Yes.
And then I came to the United States for graduate degree, both in master and PhD. But when I was growing up, just like every kid, you take all different kind of science classes, literature, and languages. And I am particularly very interested in life sciences. I also was taking chemistry, physics, and so forth. And at that time, I have a couple of subjects I like. including biological science, because it's a life science, and I'm very fascinated by what it called life. And I did not have the same feeling toward chemistry and physics, even though they are also the explanation about gravity and atom are also very interesting to me, but I feel more about this life. And at the same time, like many kids, I was also pulled by Chinese literature. And for example, like other subject, or for example, like doing crafts. So it was kind of multiple interest. But in the sciences area, I think I was pulled by biological science a little more, but at that young age, was not really certain yet.
Yeah, so did you actually decide that you're going to be involved in the field of study of biological sciences? Can you remember when that decision was made on your part?
Yeah, I think that became a little more concrete and more specific when I went to university, a college, a Catholic university in Taiwan, and there they have more specific specialized classes, including general biology, cell biology, histology, plant anatomy, and therefore you started to know there are actually specialized field in biological sciences. And also pretty much every class in biological sciences also have a laboratory component. And I enjoy the laboratory component because that allow me have the opportunity, have a hand-on experience to do it.
Okay, so once you work in a university, because many of our viewers are students, they could also be high school students and maybe trying to make a decision about what field of study they will eventually take up in college or university. So what do you think are the qualities that the students can develop or possess so that they may try to study eventually biological sciences as preparation for that field?
Yeah, I think first of all, no matter what subject you eventually decide to get into, have a good reading skill is very important, especially critical reading. Same thing when I am teaching my students, sometimes this takes multiple times of critical reading, and therefore a student able to get a key concept. And also not only reading, a good textbook should also provide some type of a good figure and illustration. And nowadays we are also very fortunate, have all kind of a good video. And video don't need to be long. And that kind of a good study aids can help a student really understand. And I think students also should not be afraid to ask questions. A good teacher and good professor will be willing to explain it to you from different aspects. And sometimes we also don't know all answer. And what makes it so interesting is, if I don't know, I will go back to check and look into it, or ask my colleague, and also make sure the information I got is accurate before I go back to talk to the student again. So this kind of process is not only from student point of view, for everyone, teacher, professor also benefit from this kind of mutual teaching and learning. Right?
Yes.
So I think
those are very important points that you mentioned, Dr. Shaw, about the teaching and the learning part of it. So you would like to encourage students to be curious and exploratory, not to be afraid to ask questions, and of course, to use the different kinds of learning resources that are now available. Maybe in the past, like in our previous generations, these materials were not available to us, mostly only printed materials. But now, as you said, there are audiovisual materials, there are audio materials, there are illustrations and figures that can all aid our students to help them to better understand. So from the point of view of improving the career of the students, and you also mentioned about the teachers, so once they are in the field of biological sciences, what kind of careers or trajectory or pathways can they look at in their future career and development?
Yeah, if you are trained, have a degree in departmental biological science, there are several career paths a student can do for their future, right? And oftentimes they would like to become a teacher, teaching at a high school, middle school, and they need to have a good science background. And some maybe end up want to be teaching at university or college level, and that's also perfect. And the second path will be going into doing research, either academic setting or for pharmaceutical company. Pharmaceutical company continue need to have a scientist, biologist to do research to develop new, medicine to treat diseases, and also continue to explore the possibility. For example, this pandemic. Really that wonderful biologists able to develop that kind of vaccination. Is really cool. And also, number 3 is a really big area. All the pre-health related career, including eventually you want to be a medical doctor, dentist, physical therapist, and so forth. They all need to have very strong not only biology, but oftentimes become like anatomy and physiology. And they should also have a pretty good foundation about microbiology. And that's how we learn. And that microbiology, as you know, is very important, not only in biological science, but also in restaurant industry, because you need to make your food safe, no contamination. And that's directly related microbiology.
Biology, yes. So I think you mentioned some very important career trajectories, and maybe we can discuss that further for the understanding of our audience. So you mentioned, first of all, about a possible academic career. And this is what happened to you actually, Dr. Shaw. So can you please explain from the fascination and the interest in the eventual study of biological sciences, why did you decide to have an academic career and focusing and specializing in the field of biological sciences?
Thanks so much for the question. Yes, again, in college, when I took biology and other classes, I was so fascinated by, especially very specifically, 2 specific examples from previous important figure. Dr. Hooke, Robert Hooke, under the microscope, able to find microorganisms. For me, discovery is interesting because you found something new, nobody able to did it before.
Yes.
And pretty soon, a French microbiologist, Pasteur, and he was able to disprove this so-called spontaneous generation. And then it proved, only bacteria can produce bacteria, but not like, today you see this grain here, and tomorrow grain you come out of mice. No, he actually
you cannot.
You cannot, and therefore that kind of process really strongly attract me, want to do other kind of discovery like that. And that's one thing lead to another. And therefore, after graduating from university, at that time, and still is, United States of America is a leading country in biological science area. That's why I went, at that time, I came to the United States to pursue my advanced degree at the University of Connecticut.
And when you already did your graduate studies, where is a natural progression to actually try to go to have an academic career?
Okay, yeah. Ever since, that was in 1986 when I was 26-year-old, just have a bachelor degree from Taiwan. And I went to University of Connecticut. And initially also have a summer, you need to overcome the language barrier and cultural differences.
Yes.
And quickly, you feel the culture is very different. In Oriental country, oftentimes is from top down.
Yes.
But in American setting, it's always interaction between professor and students.
Students, yes.
So it's really, really enticed me. Yeah, it's kind of open dialogue. And the professor not very good in particular field, for example, biochemistry.
Yes.
And therefore, from that expert, every student in the audience can absorb so much about what's going on in a cell. And that particular molecule is able to metabolize. And all the cells need that kind of a specific pathway. So that kind of environment, and I gradually not only make my foundation very strong, but at the same time, I was started to involve in doing research in the laboratory of one professor. So I had hand-on experience, and gradually more and more, I'm more specialized in neurobiology and endocrinology. Those two are the subject and more specialized, branch out from biology, but still within the scope of biological sciences.
Yes. So I think the more that you were able to delve deeper into the field of study of biological sciences, and again, as you mentioned about the open system of teaching and learning that you found within the American academic setting, the more you became encouraged to actually look at the possibility of an academic career. So finally, when you pursued not only your master's and your doctoral degree, how then did you also decide about this subspecialization that you mentioned, neurobiology, for example, or biochemistry? What kind of considerations will the students or the professors think about when they would want to have this kind of subspecialization in your field?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah. In the United States, if you are interested in doing certain specific area of research, the current procedure is you need to find a laboratory. And that professor, he or she is doing that kind of research. And therefore, it's an opportunity is open for everybody to apply for it. And if he or she have room, then he or she will take you on. But the qualification is usually at a graduate level, they want a student already have a bachelor degree. Second, he or she need to have a pretty good background. Doesn't need to be 4.0 GPA, but at least about 3.0. And also, he or she need to show why he or she is so interested in this area, have a passion about want to do it, and eventually actually work side by side with the mentor and able to carry out the grant and eventually publish the result in a good scientific journal. At the same time, both professor and that student feel, they achieve a lot. So it's kind of a very good scholarly activity for everybody, for student, for mentor, and also for scientific community, because that's how new discovery is able to share with the audiences.
Yes. So I think, Dr. Shaw, actually, through your recollection of your personal experience and journey, the decision making from the time that you were a young person to the time that you eventually decided on your subspecialization in your advanced degree and field of study, I think we can see, as you mentioned now, the most important essence of the field of sciences, in that we would like to have new explorations and discovery in order to benefit the community around us. And specifically, you mentioned about the relevance and importance of biological sciences, especially, I think, very responsive to the times that we have right now. In the middle of this pandemic, now we are turning to the scientists, the researchers, in order to find some possible mitigating vaccinations, and maybe, who knows, someday a cure. So you mentioned about the field of research. So in graduate school, of course, you have a field of interest that you could be mentored in by your professor. Eventually, how about that kind of career trajectory? What can they expect if they become a scientist or a researcher in the field of science, and specifically in biology?
Yeah. For anyone interested in doing research, they need to expect this is a field also very competitive, because they need the research grant. You need to apply for it through the federal government, and usually about 5 to 10% of grants submitted is supported. And once it's supported, for example, a professor get a grant of $1 million, and that allows him or her to carry out that specific research for the next 5 years. And in the grant, he or she also mentioned, because of that, I need certain equipment material. But at the same time, I will need, for example, 2 PhD students or 2 master students, and to help to carry out this particular research study. So this is a pretty competitive. Now, oftentimes, the professor is looking for a couple of students, and it could end up 5 or 6 people apply for it. But on the other hand, sometimes the professor also worry about, well, I have this grant I need to carry out, but nobody applying it for it.
So who will help me?
So opportunity always there, because if a professor doesn't carry out a research experiment by certain day, and that money need to go back to the federal government. So everybody has some type of pressure. From mentor point of view, need to apply for grant, and also need to find a suitable person willing to do it. From student point of view, you want to be recognized, you are qualified and willing to do it. At the same time, also able to get along with this particular mentor. So it's a team effort. So it's part of that's how system is working here in USA. I believe it also the way it works in many other countries. Every level have some type of a good pressure, but always I feel you need to train, everyone need to be trained in a way we are all a team player, because at the end of the day, you need to get along with your colleague, your professor, your student. And also I heard about quite a bit of story. And there's also unfortunate situations. Sometimes when student mentor cannot get along, well, in a good country like this, that's fine. There's other opportunity. Maybe somebody else will work out for that situation. Always they have that human side of aspect in every shade of life.
So you mentioned, Dr. Shaw, about the need for this skill of being a team player. Many students, even parents, they become very intimidated by the study of sciences. Maybe they have this idea about what they call the mad scientist, going to the laboratory and becoming very antisocial, or not caring about what is happening outside of the laboratory and kind of looking like mad or crazy. But as you mentioned, on the human dimension, what kind of skills and competencies do you believe students, especially if they're going to go into the field of science and particularly in research, should really develop? You mentioned already about the human component. And so do you think that these are very strong skills that need to be developed even outside of what are the technical scientific skills needed by the students? How do you think they can develop this kind of competencies as a person from being a student to that of a professor?
Yeah, very good question. And just like all area, in my opinion, the most important thing is still honesty. When
Yes.
carry out scientific research,
Mm-hmm.
how would anyone know this is honest data?
Yes.
Although we do have a good regulation, you need to keep your note for a period like 7
Yes.
years. In
Yes.
case the publisher was wondering about, are these data accurate? Or
Yes.
are you were making up these data? So I would
Yes.
say you always need to be honest. There's a certain ethic you need to follow. And two, unfortunately, maybe 1% or more, less than that, certain scientists didn't follow the rule and also
Yes.
have that very not so good consequences. Otherwise, we waste everybody's time and energy, because once it's published, how are we able to ensure it's honest data? So that's
Yes.
kind of first one I'm going to remind our audience. Honesty is
Yes.
always the best policy. One. Two, sure, there's a lot of time you're going to find out you are concentrated in a laboratory, just like a math scientist.
Yes.
And you can see the big research university.
Yes.
They never turn off the light. This research is going on 24/7.
Or yes.
Yeah. And then my mentor always told me, you know, he started to feel, all right, you look a little tired. So it's again a teamwork. He told me, well, Donald, it's time for you to take a vacation.
Really?
2 weeks, 3 weeks, and come back. Otherwise, you know, after a while, we feel tired, not productive anymore. And therefore, again, that's a teamwork. And therefore, your mentor and say, yeah, take a break. And when you are recharged, rest. And when you come back, you are able to do an even better job, in this way. So it's again, first, honesty. Second, oftentimes could be a lot of time you spend in the laboratory by yourself or with your team, you know, not in touch with outside world. And I remember in the laboratory, I was a part of a member. Every Friday, oftentimes, we do have a so-called TGIF. Everybody a little bit relaxed.
Really? Yes.
Yeah, with your teammate. Because every, you know, weekday from 9 to 5, everybody work hard to carry out specific tasks we need to do. But also about Friday, and sometimes I play basketball, and other time I go with them to celebrate, enjoy that meal on Friday evening with them. And also that's a social setting. You are not only know people in the same laboratory, but could be from the same building or from the same campus. And that make life very interesting, because that's where you are able to know, oh, I'm doing biological science study, and this fellow is doing chemistry.
Yes.
And the other ones was doing physics. So you are able to know what are they doing, and they also like to know what you are doing. You know, what kind of topic you are doing. So scientists also have life. That's what I'm trying to talk about.
Not just the life sciences, but have a life outside of sciences.
Right.
So all work makes Donald a dull boy, right? So what you're saying is we also have to live our life even outside of being very serious or dedicated to our field of study. So I think with all of this very fascinating information, knowledge, and experience that you have had, maybe you can tell our audience currently about your fields of research and interests right now, currently, what you are working on, and what you hope could be a kind of inspiration for our audience, those who have an idea about maybe having the kind of career that you have achieved, and how can they aspire to prepare themselves for living this life of someone who's going to be a scientist, someone who's going to be involved in life sciences, and someone who is also going to develop themselves as a person with a life outside of science.
Okay, thanks so much. Very good. Yeah, currently I am conducting one of the study involving two chemical, which
Yes.
is CBD, cannabidiol, and nematrogen. These two kind of chemical, the impact on nerve. I'm
On the
using at
nerve.
least two kind of nerve. I'm using the species of frog and mice.
Really?
Yeah,
Yes.
and these two kind of chemical, cannabidiol and nematrogen, currently we are using them to treat epilepsy.
Yes.
However, the mechanism behind them, scientists know very little, but
Yes.
it did work. And if we are able to find out the mechanism behind it, we perhaps we're able to develop better medicine. And also maybe there's a certain side effect we need to be aware of, because CBD in particular, currently it's over the counter. A lot of people are taking CBD because they feel they can help them to perform better. For example, maybe quite a bit of golfer are taking
I
it.
see.
And somebody feel the neck pain, they take it, they feel good. However, that's the danger right here. Maybe help, but we need to know more about good and bad part of a CBD, for example.
Yes.
And this way we feel safer and also help the scientific community. There's perhaps a similar kind of medical, but less side effects thing we can do. So that's one thing I want to share with you about my current study. Now, while you are still young, some of you are deciding what kind of career you're going to take, and some a little bit more certain.
Yes.
My advice is, don't be afraid, work hard so that whatever subject you are taking, you have that general, very good foundation of the knowledge. And this world is become smaller and smaller, no matter where you are, Philippines, Europe, USA. Keep in mind, we are very fortunate to have the internet. You can search for example, certain school, certain laboratory are looking for, ambitious scientists like you and want to be part of it. You just ask that mentor, I'm interested in your program. And I like to apply for it. And where is the form? And it's very easy. So don't be afraid. You just like me when I was younger, and I just a little bit older than you are. And that is very good because you have that passion, for example, biological sciences. And then, but you want to train yourself in a way, not only strong in foundation, but gradually you also become more specialized. Because once you become specialized, you are able to carry out the research as a more specific field. And that just simply makes sense.
I see. So I think it has been such a very wonderful sharing that you have done with us, Dr. Shaw, for this evening. We hope that the students, the parents, the community who were able to hear what you had to say can now have these aspirations about their academic goals and maybe have some good idea about the process that they have to undergo in order for them to eventually achieve their academic goals. So as a last parting word, what can you say to our audience? This is the students, the parents, the mentors, the professors, especially for those who are now in the time of decision making, whether it is from high school to university, from university to possible graduate school, or even going into the different career pathways that you talk about in the field of biological sciences?
Okay, thank you. Again, while you are making decision, I truly believe no decision is wrong. And really, oftentimes a young person have multiple interests. But if you are interested in biological science, it's open door for you to be doing research in biological sciences, also all the pre-health related career path.
Yes.
Most of the time also need to have a strong background in biology, anatomy, and physiology. I'm talking about if you want to become a doctor, medical doctor, dentist, nurses, also need to be pretty good at biological sciences. But also, not only the knowledge per se, don't forget about those key values I mentioned earlier. Being honest, and whatever you do, the mentor, the professor also look for someone who is careful enough in the laboratory, doesn't need to be very quick, but careful, and then also honest report about it. And also while you are in high school and university, make sure you are also a team player, able to have a good report with your colleague and with respect and gentleness. And finally, my parting word from me is a good communication skill will carry you a long way, no matter is speaking, writing, right, and reading. That kind of good communication skill is, I think, is not only in biological science, all aspects of life need to have a good communication skill. Therefore, we are able to continue to learn from each other. But biological science is one of the exciting fields in life. And also not only in this area, I forgot to mention, if you are in biological science area, remember we also have environmental part, ecology.
Yes.
How are we able to keep our beautiful environment as good as it can be? Again, that's a sub area of biological science, is in the environmental and ecology area, because we also need to be a good manager. We take the resources from our environment. So how are we able to continue to keep it beautiful without pollution? So really, that is just want to share with you, is not all those health related fields, but we also have ecology part, which is a subset of biological science.
Yes. So we hope that with your valuable insights and wisdom that you have imparted to our audience, we hope that someone out there who were able to join us and listen to our interview for today will be inspired to maybe follow their interest, their passion, or maybe their curiosity to go into science, life sciences, and particularly in biological sciences, and even the subspecializations that you mentioned, whether it be basic research like what you are doing, could be health related or allied health related, or you've mentioned also very important aspect of environmental and ecological protection and conservation. So with that, Dr. Donald Shaw, Assistant Professor of Biological Sciences at the University of Tennessee, Martin, thank you so much for giving us your valuable insight. We wish you the best in all your studies. We hope that you will continue to become a whole integrated person and encourage your students, your colleagues, and the academic community to pay close attention to the developments in biological sciences.
Thanks so much. Feel free to contact me if you have a further question, and it will be my honor to be invited. And thank you very much, Dr. ALCAZAR and your staff to make this interview possible. And have a great day, everyone.
Yes, we look forward to eventually maybe collaborating and doing some more of our work together in the academic community together. So thank you very much, sir. Stay safe and healthy, and goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. So there you have it, our worldwide audience, our televiewers. We had a very interesting and spirited discussion with Dr. Donald Shaw, Assistant Professor of Biological Sciences at the University of Tennessee Martin, United States of America. And definitely that was our Field of Sciences segment for this episode on the Field of Sciences and Technology. Now we come to the second segment of our episode for today, which is on the technological part. So please stand by for Dr. Jesus Rodrigo Torres, the President of Technological University of the Philippines, who will be discussing with us the wide field of technology. So stand by and we will see you in a while with our guest. I'm very happy to join everyone and to be joined by our esteemed guest, who is really an intrinsic part of the PLP community. So let me properly introduce our topic for today and also the background of our guest. So of course, one of the main, if not the main function really of the higher education institution is in instruction and curriculum. And definitely we want to further our knowledge and understanding of the different fields of study. So for today, we will examine the field of technology. So even though we have not all of the technological fields being offered as courses or academic subjects in the Pamantasan ng Luzon and Pasig, we would like to seek out the experts in the different fields of study so that we may be further enhanced in our educational knowledge and experiential learning with respect to the field of technology. So our guest for this afternoon, it's evening here, so I make some mistakes here sometimes about the time. So he is currently the president of the Technological University of the Philippines. He was formerly the president of the Rizal Technological University and also one of the only 6 fellows of the Astronomical Society worldwide. And of course, he's very much an intrinsic part, as I mentioned, of our PLP community as a member of the board of Regents. So let us welcome everyone, Dr. Jesus Rodrigo Torres. So good afternoon, sir. How are you today?
Mabuti naman. Okay lang kasi this morning I visited 2 campuses of PUP. Doon sa Manila and then I went to PUP in Taguig to ask people to do things for the university. Kailangan yan eh. The PUP is a multi-campus university with actually 8 campuses. Hanggang doon sa Negros Occidental. That's why the president of the university should really work hard. So I'm already...
So very good, sir, that you had some time for us today. So as you know, one of the innovations that we have introduced on the occasion of our 21st anniversary, actually, it was long in coming. Last year was supposed to have been a landmark anniversary for the PLP with its 20th anniversary, but all our activities were canceled due to the COVID. So finally, yung realization of our innovation for the PLP Virtual Campus was realized this year, and we're very happy that we're continuing this program despite the pandemic at kahit po hindi na kami nagkikita-kita because right now, currently PLP Campus is currently closed. There is currently quarantine facilities in our PLP campus, and of course, all personnel are on work from home mode. Kaya hindi po nagkikita-kita ngayon ng stakeholders ng PLP students, faculty, or non-teaching personnel, or even our stakeholders. And this is our way of reaching out and communicating our services and our programs to our PLP community. So maraming salamat, Doc Chess, that you were able to join us for this afternoon. So maybe let's go and start with our very primary question, because we're really talking about the field of technology and for the benefit of our students. Maybe you can tell us how and when you actually decided that you had an interest in technology, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about what fields you actually explored before deciding on what you eventually took up in college for your studies. Doc, yes?
Okay, Actually, kaya ako naging interested in technology and in the sciences, among others, it's because I happen to study in the Rizal Technological University. And
Yes.
inevitable, hindi maiiwasan at talagang kailangan maging interesado ka dyan. Working in the RTU for so many years, for 40 years, as a matter of fact, in various positions, such as Vice President for Administration and Finance, Vice President for Academic Affairs. It is inevitable that you will learn these things because you will have to manage them. More so, nung maging presidente tayo doon for 8 years, the requirements for the upgrading of laboratories, as well as the requirements for the upgrading of the curriculum, must be learned by the president. It does not mean that if you are the president kasi, or if you are the leader of the university will go by its own. Alam naman natin yan, alam naman natin yan, the presidents and the leaders should continue to study and must never allow themselves na sila ay umandar na lang ng kusa. In automotive, hindi po pwede. You have to learn a lot of things. Do not stop learning.
Yes, perpetual students ang nasa education sector. So in the process of your work, as you said, dun sa Rizal Technological University, anong nakita niyo, Sir Jess, na dapat mga qualities or aptitude of our students so that if they do have an interest, they can eventually pursue careers related to technology? Ano bang mga qualities na hinahanap natin sa ating students that they should foster and develop?
Okay, kasi ganito, sa TUP naman, sa ngayon, I became president in September 2018, and then 2019, and then inaabot ng pandemic, Inaabot ng pandemic. Kaya the requirements for the student has been evolving. Before they just listen to lectures, attend ang bata, ang estudyante, and then the teacher is in front, the teacher gives assignments, the teacher explains, and that's it. However, many years later, ngayon, during the pandemic, I think the teacher cannot teach as much as the teacher wants to. So the student must learn how to learn by themselves. Dapat matuto silang matuto nila. And that means taking advantage of the opportunity to learn. Maswerte nakakapag-aral, lalo-lalo na sa atin, sa PLP, lalo na sa PUP, and in all state universities and colleges and LUCs, libre sila ng matrikula. This is an opportunity which cannot be missed. Kaya, wag lang basta makinig sa lecture ng mga teacher. Wag lang basta sumagot ng assignment. You must do your own reading. You must pursue your own passion as well as your own interests.
Yes. So definitely, sir, how do you think we can meet the challenge, especially yung sa technological fields, usually requirement ang laboratory work or field work or practical application in the middle of this COVID pandemic?
Ganito, sa TUP, we have purchased a lot of licenses. I was talking to my University Information and Technology Center director. He informed me that so far we have purchased about 500 licenses for automotive engineering. Okay,
Isang
program pa lang, 20 licenses for virtual conferencing and meetings. We had to renew our Microsoft Teams program, Google G Suite, and others. Well, actually, 2019 we purchased about 200 computer units
Like
that were distributed to the various campuses. Hindi pa natin alam na magkakaroon ng pandemic, pero nagka-pandemic kaya very useful itong 200 computer units na ito. And
yes,
most importantly,
definitely.
siyempre, we have to upgrade our internet connection sa university. It starts with the university. So those are some
Yes,
things we are doing. A few days ago, last week, we had a meeting about the purchase of the subscription to e-books and e-journals,
journals.
together
Yes.
with all the librarianship support to our students. So, yeah, yun ang we recalibrated our policies pertaining to the design, development, and review of learning packages. Kasi lalo na ngayon, ang mga teacher, they have to create their own learning packages to be approved by the
Yes,
Department
pack
of
nila,
ICT.
diba? Force packs.
Oo, ayan kailangan yan Kaya iba ngayon, ang ating course of action. Previously, while everything was going all right, we had to we buy equipment, we review the curriculum. Pero this time, technology, the interconnectivity has become a very important aspect of running a university.
Yes, sir. So, because Technological University of the Philippines is supposed to be in the forefront of technological innovation among higher education institutions in the Philippines. So, what sort of parameters of advice can you give to other higher education institutions, sir, in order to venture into these technological advancements for the delivery of their academic programs? Because not all universities have been geared towards technology.
Number one dyan they have to study how the other universities which are dealing in technology are run. Paano pinatatakbo? They have to benchmark. That is the most important
so
thing. And then
benchmarking,
benchmarking ang pinaka-importante dyan. If it is possible to their deans, their department heads, or even the vice presidents visit, if it is possible, to visit the campuses of these universities and look into the laboratory, to the laboratories, tignan nila yung mga curriculum, keep on talking. Eventually, magkakaroon sila ng memorandum of agreement with that university, and that's it. If they have the heart for it, they will be able to pursue what their objectives regarding technology.
Yes. Okay. So you mentioned about your career dun sa RTU when you started to develop your interest in technology and then eventually nga as president of TUP. But on the other hand, another aspect of your career had been an academic career. Paano naman you, sir, na-decide and when did you actually have an interest in pursuing an academic career? Maybe this is something that our students would also want to hear from you and explore further future career development.
Biglang dumating President AMIHAN, biglang dumating yung bagay na yan, I was not thinking of it. I was not thinking of it. I was thinking of going to the corporate world. Pero I come from a family of teachers kasi. My grandfather was a teacher for 42 years at the Rizal High School. Ang mga naging estudyante nga nila, sila dito sa Longga, sila Nepal Gonzales.
Alumnus ng Rizal High School po ngayon.
Rizal High School sila Rene Sabisa, Bobit Sanchez. They were some of his students in those 42 years of being teacher in the Rizal High School. Pagkatapos, both mother side and father side, I have aunts and uncles who are and who were teachers. Kaya siguro it runs in the blood. Kaya,
Family pala, ha?
oo, immediately after I graduated in college at the age of 20, I was given a teaching load already. So, wala na. Nandun na tayo eh. Di, pangatawanan na natin. Magturo na tayo. And the first subject I
So,
taught,
tuloy-tuloy naman. Pero sir, what do you think would be the qualities that could possibly make academicians or those who choose the teaching profession successful? What sort of aptitude should they develop as students or even as graduates right now?
okay, ganito, the student or the academician, katulad ng pinag-aralan natin kanina, must never stop learning. Okay?
Lifelong learning.
Lifelong learning talaga. For example, dito, I am actually in my home. I have plenty of books here. You see, puro libro itong nakapaligid sa akin dito. I spend most of my
Puro
waking
mga
hours.
libro.
Lalo
Yes.
na ngayon, pandemic, papasok tayo ng kalahating araw. And then,
Yes, yes.
uuwi na tayo. I go back to this room, to this library, and start reading. I spend most of my waking hours here reading books. Ganyan eh. Kaya, that is the best preparation for a teacher. For example,
Yes,
you want to teach the subject psychology, then you must know the subject and you must read. Hindi
Yes.
lang yung nabasa mo yung textbook, but keep on reading, that's it.
So, talagang lifelong learners tayo as teachers.
So, yeah.
And of course, what you don't know, you can always learn. Tama, sir?
Tama.
Definitely. Sir, so let's go naman dun sa medyo kakaiba nga when we found out about your background that you really became this distinguished fellow on the field of astronomy. And that field is not really that established, especially in the Philippines. So how did that interest come about? And paano nyo naman, sir, dinevelop eventually your distinguished career in the field of astronomy?
Ganito yan eh. Medyo, for other people, it might be interesting. Ang isang bata, halimbawa, begins being interested in the heavenly bodies. Halimbawa, stars, planets, whichever, ano yan, titingala yan. Okay? Ewan ko ngayon kasi light pollution in the Metro Manila is
Prevent you
already...
from seeing the stars.
Wala na. The stars are extinct. Almost all the stars are extinct here in Metro Manila.
Yes.
We have become probably as bright as the brightest city in the world, which is Singapore. Kaya wala na. I don't know if our students have seen the Milky Way yet. Pero the interest comes naturally. And then I had a telescope. You know, may kasabihan tayo sa astronomy that knowledge comes through the telescope. Now, combined
Yes.
sa ating passion for doing research, what I did was to read and read because knowledge is the most important tool of an astronomer. It is not telescope, it's not binoculars, but knowledge is the most important tool of the astronomer. So I kept on reading, and when I started observing, I wrote my observations. Eventually, umabot ng mahigit 30 volumes yung aking observations.
Wow.
Okay.
Kaya pala ganun ang nangyari sa distinguished career niya, sir.
Oo, and at volume 15, I was already elected as member of the International Astronomical Union. So it is passion, the desire to learn true and true. Astronomy is not really a developed field in the country. There is only one university offering it, RTU. And it started because of the efforts, because of my efforts, medyo modesty set aside. Kaya nagkaroon ng astronomy dyan kasi may
Astronomy.
nagpaumpisa. May nagpaumpisa.
Yes.
Ganyan.
Yeah. So, and that is one of your accolades for being an innovator in the field of astronomy, especially sa Philippines. So, as an astronomer, as you mentioned nga, what do you think will be the possible developments of this field in the Philippines? Di ba ngayon nga, we really want to have space exploration, at least in other countries. How about in the Philippines, sir?
Ganito, I think it must emanate from the top. Katulad nung nagkaroon ng ang astronomy, ang RTU, nakilala ko sa Philippine Astronomical Society sina Father Victor Badelio of Ateneo. He was then
Observatory kasi sila, diba?
observatory. He was former director of the Ateneo of the Manila Observatory. And then when my work reached 7 volumes, nagpunta ako ng Pag-asa to give them copies. Nakita ko si Dr. Bernardo Soriano of the Pag-asa, and then Dr. Cynthia Cerebre, and we became friends. And after that, we had plans. And then those plans resulted into the astronomy programs of RTU. Now, in 2006, Dr. Soriano was proposing the creation of the National Committee for Astronomy because at that time, tatlo na kami na members ng ICU. Okay? In 2009, the National Committee for the International Year of Astronomy was created. Pero after that, wala na. I don't know. I think pagka nagkita kami ni Secretary de la Peña of the OST, I will reiterate this proposal to him para magkaroon ng National Committee for Astronomy. Ngayon, sa Space Agency, nagkausap kami ni Dr. Marciano, ni Joel Joseph Marciano. And this is one of the topics we discussed, the creation of the National Committee for Astronomy. And together with Dr. Casper Jucaris, ngayon of PNRI, who is also a member of the IAU, baka i-propose uli namin. Buti na paalala mo sa akin, President.
That is like one of the emerging trends, di ba, in other countries, sir. And syempre meron naman talaga tayong mga distinguished fellows and professors like yourself. And as you mentioned nga, kung 2007 pa or 6 pa yung last active initiative nyo to really create entities or bodies, maybe you should take it up again, sir, as one of the prime innovators in the field of astronomy. Diba,
tawagan ko mamaya si Dr. Casper. Buti napaalala mo. Nakakalimutan ko.
Diba?
Nasa PNRI na siya ngayon. Dati nasa CHID eh. Yung PNRI.
Diba, sir? Yun. And then, so basically, you've been through, well, almost, should I say, 5 decades, sir, already of being in the academic field and in the technological field, basically as a field of study. So, because actually yung program po natin dito sa El Pasigueño is really being hosted by the Office of Student Affairs. And basically, of course, one of the main functions of student services is on the career guidance and counseling of our students. So from your end, sir, what sort of career guidance and advice can you impart to our students who are listening right now? We are live on Facebook and YouTube on our channels in PLP. If they are currently or want to pursue a career in technology. Sa amin naman po in PLP, we have computer science, information technology, nursing, and electronics and communications engineering. And of course, someday we hope that we will be able to enter into agreements with state universities like TUP or RTU for articulation agreements to further our study in the field of technology. So siguro po you would want to address our students because STEM is really one of those fields that we really want to encourage actively in the Philippines in order for us to move forward and develop. Yes, sir.
Oo, mag-aral kayo ng mag-aral. Halimbawa, nakuha niyo na yung course na IT o kaya
Yes,
computer
sir.
science o kaya nursing or electronics engineering. Aba, nako, huwag niyo sayangin ang pagkakataon. Itong pagkakataon, pinaka-importante. Study hard, study well, ano? At kasi alam niyo, mabilis lumipas ang kabataan natin eh. Yung kabataan nyo, sandali lang yan eh. And then afterwards, you will become parents yourselves, you will become husbands and wives. Kailangan buti na yung ilang taon na naghahanda kayo para sa totoong buhay, samantalahin
Yes,
ninyo.
sir, as students.
Oo, samantalahin nila itong mga bata sapagkat ito madaling lumipas at mahirap manghinayang. Samantalahin nyo, you have the opportunity not all people have. Ganyan lang,
Yes, sir.
Mr. President.
Yun nga eh. Especially, di ba, sir, sa STEM, madami namang mga initiatives and incentives ang ating mga students and graduates, especially in this field, kasi gusto nga natin silang i-encourage to continue studying in the field of the STEM. And then lastly, of course, besides yung syempre yung education natin, there's on the academic side of it. But how about, sir, yung possible involvement naman nila for the educational enhancement outside of the actual curriculum and instruction? What kind of advices can you give them? Because meron din tayong mga student organization, extracurricular activities, or other leadership training na pwedeng gawin ng ating mga students.
Okay, ganito yan. When I was Dean of Student Affairs myself, that was
Yes.
a long time ago. Almost more
Not
than
so
3
long
decades.
ago.
Ang tagal na. I was Dean of Student Affairs nung pagkamatay ni Ninoy Aquino, 1983. So that was the
Okay. 1983.
Oh, 83.
Parang hindi pa ata buhay yung iba nating students from PLB, sir, nung panahon na yan.
Wala pa sila. That was 1983, pinakamatindi ang student activism noong mga panahon na yon. Pero
Yes, sir, definitely. I was one of those.
mas matindi pa yan kaysa noong first quarter storm noong 1969,
Yes.
1970 up to 1972. Pero just the same, nakakakita ko all throughout ng mga student organizations who make themselves valuable, no, who make themselves useful not only to the members of the organization but also to the community. Kaya
Yes, sir.
ang isang magandang program dito is to link the extension projects of the university with the student organizations. Kasi ang
Yes, sir.
student organizations, ang gusto nilang mangyari magkaroon ng kabuluhan yung kanilang existence. Okay? Hindi yung puro sila debate, yung puro meeting lang. Hindi. Kung gusto ninyong magkaroon ng kabuluhan ng existence ninyo, kayong mga student organizations, then do something good to your fellow men. Ganyan eh.
Yes.
Tumulong tayo sa kapwa-tao. As to how it's going to be done, pwede nating, we can have several, we can think of programs on how to do it. Ganun yan.
Yes, sir. So, bumalik talaga tayo, sir, doon sa what are the main functions really of the higher education institution, instruction and curriculum, research, yung sinabi nyo, never-ending studies, then, of course, yung extension or outreach programs, and finally, production, yung outcomes natin for our students and our graduates.
Meron nga pala akong naalala,
Yes,
ang isang paraan, halimbawa, katulad nitong tutoring, yung sa TUP sa Visayas.
Peer tutorial.
Oo, yung kasi merong mga, alam nyo, ang hirap maging nanay ngayon siguro. Kami mga tatay, hindi naman kami masyadong involved. Pero ang hirap maging nanay, meron kang 3 anak, puro nag-o-online. Okay? Pagkatapos tayo tanong ng tanong, ikaw ang mag-tutor. Alam niyo ginawa ng mga taga-TUP Visayas ng mga student organizations, they volunteer to tutor pupils, yung mga bata, maliliit. O, hindi sila ang nagtuturo. Hindi naman siguro hindi masyadong matindi ang ECQ doon sa kanila. Kaya nakakapagbahay-bahay sila. Pwedeng pumunta pa, natuturuan nila yung mga bata. Siguro that's one way of making a sense of your existence as a student organization ngayong mga panahon na to.
Yes, sir. And of course, as we know, as teachers, you cannot teach what you do not know. So malay nyo nga, sir, through this tutorial program nila, yung mga students natin, the more sila mahasad, the more they become proficient in the subjects because then they have the opportunity to learn how to teach it to other students and other young people, di ba? So, lalo sila pwede maging proficient.
Sabi ng director ng PUP Visayas Campus, the students find it very fulfilling and very satisfactory yung nakikita lang natututong mag-multiply yung mga maliliit na bata, natututong mag-divide. At saka nagiging idol sila ng mga maliliit. Kaya nakakatuwa.
Diba? Diba, sir, yun naman yung greatest joy as teachers, yung accolade that your students become better than you are, hindi ba? Yes, sir.
That's right.
Diba? And of course, to transform others. Kung before, non-reader sila, pagkatapos mo silang turuan, naging reader na sila, hindi ba?
Yeah, that's right.
And if we didn't know math before, naging math whiz sila eventually. So, napakagandang transformation at ang education. Sir, siguro po yung pinaka-last part na lang ng ating interview as part of the pamantasan ng lungsod ng Pasig Board of Regents, which we know is the highest policy-making body of the university. What sort of developments and strategies do you foresee for a young higher education institution like ourselves to move forward and develop further for the future?
Basta ano lang yan, wala namang secret formula dyan eh. Basta we will do our best all the time, keep on improving. Alam mo, ang philosophy, managerial philosophy ko dyan, leadership philosophy, actually is Confucius. Ang sabi ni Confucius, if you want to build a mountain, start carrying small stones. Okay, so mga maliliit na bagay, try to achieve them, and then soon you will find na ang dami mo na palang nagawa para sa university, and that the university is already suddenly it will discover itself. People will wake up and say, we are one of the best universities in the country already. Ganun lang. Pamantayan.
Yes, sir. So we look forward to more exchanges for you, sir, and of course advice insofar as the strategic policy making in the university is concerned.
Hello again, this is AAA Live. What a very lively and interesting discussion and episode that we've had for tonight, discussing the field of sciences and technology. So with our guest, Dr. Donald Cho, Assistant Professor of Biological Sciences from the University of Tennessee Martin, USA, followed by Dr. Jesus Rodrigo S. Torres, President of the Technological University of the Philippines and also former President of the Rizal Technological University, who delve into the field of technology. So again, we hope that you will join us here again next Wednesday on AAA Live, where your academic goals are advanced and achieved, and take away all of these lessons that you have learned, my dear students, parents, stakeholders, and televiewers of the academic community. So again, like, follow, and subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube channels here in Katipunan channel. Again, this is Attorney AMIHAN April ALCAZAR, wishing everyone to stay safe and healthy. Till next time, good evening to everyone.
AAA Live.
Inyong napakinggan si Attorney Amihan April ALCAZAR.
AAA Live!
Naway kinapulutan ninyo ng impormasyon at kaalaman ang talakayan ng mga ekspertong nakapanayam mula sa iba't ibang larangan ng edukasyon.
AAA Live!
Ang AAA Live ay mapakikinggan at mapanonood sa Katipunan Channel tuwing araw ng Miyerkules alas 7 hanggang alas 8 ng gabi.
Where your academic goals will be advanced and achieved. AAA Live!
Hanggang sa muling pagtatanghal.